Some people might just say, oh, Jez has just gone off on a big ego trip. How would you answer that?
With laughter. How would I answer that? Because it could be a big ego trip. I mean, in the last video, you kind of gave a testimony of your experience of me over 15 years in a relationship with me. So I guess on one hand, there's a kind of proof you know what an ego trip looks like. And that's not been your experience with me. So from the outside, I guess you could, if we're in a court case, I put it to the client that this person is on an ego trip.
I'd be the character witness for the defence.
Yeah, that's right. I would say that if my personality, or what some people would call ego, was in control, I wouldn't actually be doing this.
That sounds the wrong way round, almost counterintuitive. Surely, if your personality was in control, it would want the limelight.
This is not the reason here. Personalities begin forming in childhood, and a big factor in their formation is our parents. And, you know, what I would call the group personality of the family, and how our parents operate and their personalities. So this all drip feeds into one's experience of how it is to be in the world and how one should be in the world, how to act in the world. Some people's parents are very outgoing and perhaps loud and super confident and all that. Well, my parents were quiet people, I would say generally. There's an English phrase, you know, they wouldn't be ones to blow their own trumpet. And so there was a kind of underlying law in our family of don't get too big-headed. Don't think you're special. Don't think you're better than anyone else. Now, this is quite a common thing. But that was certainly one thing that fed into the group personality.
It is very, very English.
Yes, it is English. Not just English, but yeah. This can become a belief that lodges in one's mind and begins to control and inform your life. So I actually had a kind of hypersensitivity to that. So what I'm saying is that if my personality was still in control, that, which I learned as a child, would be controlling my actions and would stopping me
from doing this.
So the fact that I'm doing this is a testament to the fact that my personality, as it was, my personality, it's not my personality, but the personality that kind of grew up and dominated some of this life, is not in control. There's certainly people I know, and in my family I'm sure, who do have that perspective on me doing this. And of course, once again, if I was hooked into my personality and attached to it, I would be mortified to think that they think I'm on some big ego trip, and that would then stop me doing it as well. Do you see what I mean? So all these things, I have to be beyond personality to even do this. So, but the other factor here is that waking up does bring a certain certainty. What that means is, I've said this before, basically one enters the unknowing, but there is knowing about this, because one lives this and it gives certain answers in the relative level of what this is and what this isn't. In this inquiry and in these videos, we are walking around in this terrain and using questions and subjects to help as a kind of backdrop to and a reflection to describe what this is. I've become aware that there is a certain facility here for explaining this and teaching it and getting it over in words and concepts. So the idea that this same being would then say, oh, you mustn't do that because of this reason or because you're being big-headed, is part of the insanity of personality for me. It's this, you know, a flower wants to blossom, and for me that's all that's happening here. Whatever happens with it is, who knows.
Well, when you mentioned flower, it made me think of the tall poppy syndrome. It's a very British thing, isn't it? You know, the tallest poppies get their heads cut off.
Yeah.
You know, don't stand out. Don't.
Yeah, my head's already been cut off. I'm referring to a kind of Zen tradition of chopping the head off, meaning going beyond mind. However, I'm not sure about the idea of going beyond mind, because mind arises and does its thing. So I don't really kind of hold with that idea.
I've had, experiences of what you've called in previous videos the sort of hole in the head.
Yes,
which
stillness.
Surely that's going beyond mind to a degree.
Yeah, but I think what's conjured up in that image is the head is chopped off. There's no mind anymore.
Right.
But a mind arises just like anything arises. But it's not. It's not. The personality is not running the show through that mind. There's still thoughts, but one is not dominated by those thoughts. For example, some people have a pattern of lack of self-love and self-abuse in that way, and those thoughts then dominate that life. So that's an example of sort of unfreedom happening through the mind, and that couldn't happen here. That stillness is beyond those kind of thought patterns, but mind still arises. Thoughts still happen.
A question I was going to ask is, where do you think, the law arises in a group personality? Don't stick your head up. Don't, stick your head above the parapet. Don't draw attention to yourself. It was there in my family as well, and not just my family, around me.
Yeah. And
it can be quite almost fearful. It's a fear-based thing. It's what other people will think. Other people won't like you. That's what the fear is, maybe.
Well, I kind of touched on that, didn't I? That would be something that could have stopped me. All people would think this about me, and I want to be liked, so I can't do this. The closing down of freedom in that is phenomenal. So we walk around trying to be liked, and in trying to be liked, we close down who we are and what we are and the talents we have.
What's likeable about us?
Yeah. So it's more games of the personality.
At times in the life beyond personality process, you've said this is really, not very comfortable in some ways, because you're quite private, and this is, writing the books has involved revealing some very intimate private things.
Yes.
And you've said, I wouldn't do this, but this is what the work requires.
Yeah, and once again, I had to go beyond those inclinations in order to fulfill this and do this. Things can change. And I think they change around the freedom. The freedom says, you do this now.
I guess it's another one of the benefits of living beyond personality, that, you get to do things and experience things that your personality would prevent you from doing and experiencing.
Yeah, even in the world, there's this idea of fulfilling what you are, be the real you, and normally that's coming from personality, but in this, it's real. It's like whatever talents one has been given, there is definitely a side of this which leads to the living of that fully, because there's nothing to close them down and to limit them. There's no there's no limit in that way. But on the other hand, there isn't this feeding into it of like, when I get this, I'll be happy. Like, I'm not just doing this. Any action, is this coming from personality, or is this someone just sharing their talents beautifully? I love looking at videos online where people are sharing their talents, and you can learn so much. People have knowledge, they want to share it. That's a beautiful thing. That's part of love going around for me. But you can smell when there's an ego involvement in it. It becomes a slightly different thing.
This started off with a question, how do we know this isn't just an ego trip for you? But something that we haven't really touched on is, the risk of this becoming an ego trip for me. I have my name on 2 books with Jez Alborough, the multi-million selling, author and illustrator.
Now you're fanning my ego, right?
I'm really... Well, I have to build up yours, because then I get the reflected glory. So where it could turn into an ego trip, for example, is there have been times when, I found myself feeling pride that, someone like you, someone as wise as you or knows as much as you has chosen me to work on this project. And my personality can start, adding layers to it, like, oh, there's something special about me,
Right. The fact that there's a part of you that is seeking some form of message that is special, that it can take credit for, suggests to me that there is a part of you that obviously needs that and therefore doesn't feel okay as you are. So if you think back to that opening you had in a talk we had recently, was any of that active, those sort of thoughts and those needs of feeling special
No.
present in that?
No.
So if you see that opening as a kind of taste of the natural state, you can see that the natural state has nothing to do with any need to feel special. You are what you are, and you have these gifts, and you don't need me to put a crown on your head and to say, you're special because of this. You know, you're already special.
Do you feel fortunate to be living life beyond personality?
Yes. I know what it's like not to live like this. And I know that it might not have happened. So I feel absolutely blessed that this happened. That doesn't mean it was pain-free. I was born with this yearning and this knowledge of something. And then this is not just me, you know, many people who wake up will talk like this. But there's a feeling that there's something else that the world around you is not representing and living. And so there's a stage of absolute lostness, and where the hell is this? Where have I ended up? This is not. So you know something, but you're not old enough to know it consciously. So the refinding of this and the conscious kind of perception of this is a wonderful thing. You look around and you know that it isn't common, and you feel blessed.
It must be easy, though, for a personality to have these experiences, you know, maybe not the entire shift, or even have the shift. And, you know, I can imagine you talk about personality residue, just swooping in and claiming it.
Well, I would say that if it claims it, that's not the shift. The shift hasn't happened. Because the shift is when that claiming of it, of specialness through this, has finished. And we have talked about this, that openings and awakenings happen, and the personality is still kind of active and not unhooked from. And its need to feel special, we talked about specialness, comes in, and here is this perfect way to feel really special. This obviously happens a lot, and it's easy to see that going on out there. So in answer to your original question, this isn't an ego stroke personality trip. This is happening because of all of that drama and story of wanting to be special has finished.